new, and for the people that were here last time as well, I'll just give you a little bit of a reminder. So we have James Spooner with us. Did I say your last name right, James?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do my best to introduce you. So James is an expert in the Napoleon Hill approach to success. And last time he shared really amazingly how he's applied the principles from not only Think and Grow Rich, but really Napoleon Hill's philosophy of success throughout his life, and managed to manifest some amazing things, and then got into a situation where he forgot to create what was next. So those things that he had created went away, and then he was able to create them again using the same principles. He's been, Inta is also with us today as well. So Inta is one of our associates from New York, and James has been working with her and coaching with her for over 18 years, I believe. So we're very grateful and blessed to have James with us here today to share some of his insights. He's also had a lot of success and been involved in the network marketing industry a couple of different times, a little bit as an associate, but a lot as a keynote speaker and a trainer as well for other companies' conventions and things along those lines. So he is here tonight to share his wisdom about how to achieve what you want based on your mind's ability to achieve what it can conceive, something like that. Is that right, James?
That's it. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe. So
Yeah.
I'll try to succinctly go ahead and try to explain that a little bit, and we'll go from there. So, well, anyhow, thank you, Nathan, for and Nita and everybody for, the welcoming, and it's nice to be back. Some of what I'm going to do tonight may be a bit of a repeat, but as Nathan and I were just talking about a few minutes ago, repetition. It's one of the things that Napoleon Hill talked about, a good bit. Just a little bit of background. I have a business, which I've had for 47 years. And this isn't a commercial, it's just a little bit of background thing. I started out about 47 years ago, so you can tell how old I am. I'm 75, almost 75 years old. And I've been a student of Napoleon Hill probably since I was about 19 years old. One of the old traditional things, somebody gave me a copy of the book, I read it, it didn't mean a whole lot to me at that particular time until I got in the real world. And then all of a sudden, some things started to click. And I really bought into this whole concept of I didn't fully understand it, but whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And that was really the moniker that Napoleon Hill built his whole program on. And for those of you who are not familiar with Napoleon Hill, and I think probably everybody is, in 1938, he produced a classic, which is, and I hold it up here, I think you can all see it. It was called Think and Grow Rich. And that happened to be in the midst of the Depression, or towards the tail end of the Depression, but still, in it. And he had also, by the way, just as a little bit more background, in 1927, which would have been almost 10 or 11 years before that, he had come up with a book, and you can see how thick it is. It's about 600 pages long, called Law of Success. And both of these books are still available, by the way, from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, or from Penguin Press, or probably even from Amazon. Certainly Think and Grow Rich. But anyhow, the background story is that Napoleon Hill was extremely interested in, how people could become successful. And he kind of reduced it down based on a lot of information that he had gotten from Andrew Carnegie, who was at one point in time the richest man in the United States, who had come from absolute nothing, was a telegraph operator at one time, and decided that, he'd somehow or other get into the steel business. And, lo and behold, about 1904, when he liquidated the steel business, he was the richest man in the country, or in the world for that matter. Back then, that was over $400 million worth of business, which would have been I don't even know how to do the math anymore, what it would be. But anyhow, that's the background score. And, you know, when Napoleon Hill talks about whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve, he's really bringing into the whole concept that what we really are, and this is a repeat, but what we really are is a bunch of electrical energy, a thought impulses. When you kind of really get down to it, you know, when you go in and you have that EKG machine, they hook you up and, you know, that kind of shows a bunch of electrical impulses. Well, the important part of what I'm about to say is that if in fact we're not just blood and flesh and cells and all those types of things, and what really makes us run is these electrical impulses, or this energy that flows through it. A lot of people will call it your soul. A lot of people will call it your spirit. Doesn't really make any difference what you call it, because it's connected to something else. And the whole key to what Napoleon Hill was really talking about is we are a part of something rather than being apart from something. And you can put your name on that. That would be God. That would be whatever your religion is. But something has to make all the trees wake up. Something has to make us to have thoughts. And anyhow, what he was really doing was explaining, and this is the point that I want to make, he was explaining to us that if you are able to conceive, which is a form of a thought, that in other words, you have an idea, you have something that you want to accomplish, you have some kind of a visual image that comes to mind, and you're able to project that onto your screen of your mind, then you have conceived of it. Now, the next thing is that you have to believe that it is possible to get it. As a matter of fact, you're not only going to believe that it's possible to get it, but you actually want to believe that you already have whatever it is, whether it's a materialistic type thing, whether it's happiness, whether it's money or health, or it really doesn't make any difference. So now we have conceived of good health, we have conceived of wealth, we have conceived of success in USANA, we have conceived of anything that we can measure. And now we believe that we have already accomplished it. Now consciously, because we have a conscious and we have a subconscious mind, the end result is that if you conceive it, but you don't believe in it, and you don't take ownership as if you already have it, then the chances of you being able to get it, or at least being able to hang on to it, are somewhat in doubt. That's why it's conceive, believe, and then achieve. And of course, lots of people will ask me, well, wait a minute, what's this achieve part? Well, that means that you actually have to do a little bit of work. That means that you have to, you have to do what Napoleon Hill again talked about. He said the universe can't handle two things. And when he was talking about the universe, it's stuff in general. It's what we're surrounded by. And he meant that the universe is this substance. It's your connection with infinite intelligence, with God, with whatever. So it's not religion, it's just your spiritual belief. And he was saying is that if you're able to connect with that, then the people, the places, the things that you need to have based on your efforts are going to be able to come to fruition. It's that simple. And a lot of people, make it a pretty complicated thing. There's a fellow, and I'm going to recommend a YouTube website. There's a fellow by the name of Earl Nightingale. Some of you have probably heard of him, some of you haven't, but he was a great proponent of Napoleon Hill. And he did he's got this whole dissertation on Think and Grow Rich. So it's Earl Nightingale. And the first principle, and Napoleon Hill talks about principles rather than chapters in his books, okay? And a principle is something that when you apply it, you're always going to get a consistent result from that. It's like a universal principle. A principle would be something easy to think of, would be gravity. As long as you're within the Earth's gravitational force, if I pick up this book and I drop it, gravity's going to take over, and it's not going up, it's going to go down. It's going to fall to the floor. But I'd like to take just a second and read to you a kind of a preference as to what Earl Nightingale said initially about his first exposure to the principle of desire. He said, desire, here's the starting point for all achievement. The first step toward riches. And riches, by the way, is not necessarily money. It's whatever it is that you want to have be, or whatever you want to have happen. But he said, but it's here that we often run into a stumbling block. A person will say, I know what I desire, but I can't get it. We'll get in, and then he goes on to say, we'll get into the business of doubt later, but once and for all, let's clear up this point of whether or not you can accomplish that which you desire with all of your heart. He goes on to say, I think it was best expressed by Emerson, who wrote on Walden Pond, there is nothing capricious, and that means nothing that is within nature, and the implanting of a desire indicates that its gratification is in the constitution of the creature that feels it. In other words, you would not have the desire unless you are capable of its achievement. Each of us has a built-in governor, and our desires are modified by our abilities and our leanings. Whatever it is that you desire with all of your heart, understand once and for all that you should, and it is yours. Now, what he's really saying by that, and I've kind of lived by that for a long, long time, when you get into this conceive and believe stuff, okay, and I'm making a simplification of it, if you were not able to conceive of being successful, for example, at anything, but since we're all USANA people, or you people are all USANA people, that your success, your desire to be successful, whatever level of success you want to achieve in USANA, you wouldn't have that desire if you were not capable of doing it. So it's kind of a simple type of a mechanism. So henceforth, what you want to say is, when you have an idea of something that you want to accomplish, you have to kind of back up and you look at it and say, well, wait a second. I wouldn't have even been able to come up with that desire unless I actually can fulfill that desire. It just wouldn't work. So it's not a wish, it's not a fantasy, it's nothing. Okay, it's a matter of saying, well, wait a minute, I have to do a wake-up call. And then so you've conceived of it and you have the desire, you conceived of it, and then you have to believe it, and then you can achieve it. But I can't emphasize this so much any more than I possibly can. My words are a little bit tight tonight, but bottom line is that you would not be able to come up with the conception of something unless innately you had the ability to accomplish it. Okay? It kind of goes along with the whole thing that whatever your religion or your belief is, but God would never give you anything or a problem unless you had the ability to solve it. And of course, what we're really talking about is, it's a matter of, what effort are you going to put into it? What are you going to do to achieve it? How much desire do you really want to have, in order to be able to accomplish it? So it's that simple. So, and, I told a little bit of a story last time, but for those of you who are new, I'm going to repeat the story because it goes along with the whole network marketing concept. And I'll try to do this in 2 minutes or less. As Nathan mentioned, I had some experience in the network marketing business a number of years ago, and I believe in it fully because it's an interconnection between energies. An interconnection amongst people is really what it is. It's the enthusiasm for the product. It's an enthusiasm for whatever you want to accomplish from a financial standpoint, or just the ability to have self-gratification from it, and also your belief in the company. So anyhow, a number of years ago, and this is probably 25 years ago, I was involved in a network marketing company, and I was moderately successful at it, but I went to a big convention, okay? And the convention had about 3,000 people in it, and I'm just one of the participants. I didn't win any great awards or anything. And I'm sitting there looking at, everybody walk across the stage, get awards, the whole concept that was, everything that was going on. And I said, this looks like a lot of fun. And I think I can do this. And what I was particularly enamored by was the keynote speakers that they had at the convention, who were all talking about the same thing that I'm talking about. Guess what? Anybody in this audience, as they were saying, can accomplish anything that they want. It's just a matter of understanding the desire, understanding, their belief system, and going to work and going ahead and doing it. So anyhow, I made that decision. I made a connection, and the connection was pretty simple. It was, I want to be able to be a keynote speaker. Well, time goes on, and I was successful at that, and I went on to be a consultant in network marketing and so forth. Well, the interesting part of it is that eventually I end up as the senior instructor for the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And one of my responsibilities was to travel around the world, going out to all different types of countries: Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, all of these places, and kind of do a tour promoting the whole concept of Napoleon Hill and Think and Go Rich, but also, to, work with different people that were out there and be the trainer of the trainer. So anyhow, to shorten the story up a little bit, I ended up going to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And when I got there, they said, oh, by the way, in addition to what you're going to do for us, we've got you scheduled to go down and be the keynote speaker for a network marketing company in Singapore, which is like driving 200 miles down the road. And, you're going to be the keynote speaker. And I said to them, just out of curiosity, thanks for telling me, by the way, but because we were going to do this in 2 days, but about how many people are going to be in the audience? And they said somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 people. So the interesting part of it is that it took 25 years for that to come to fruition. Now, I'm not trying to tout my experience. What I am saying is sometimes we as individuals have a tendency to get impatient. And in my particular case, I had almost forgotten that I had made that statement, to be perfectly honest with you. But, the interesting part of it is, and here I was the keynote speaker, and it was a fulfillment of something that I had planted the seed, planted the idea a number of years before. So anyhow, that's kind of a story to let you know that either be careful what you think of, because it's going to come to fruition, or be very enthusiastic what you think about, because once you've conceived it, you planted the seed, and it's definitely going to come to fruition. So Nathan, I don't know how long you want to go on. We've been going for almost about 20 minutes, and I just kind of brought up a few of the things, but the main gist that I have been able to express for years and years and years to people is that if you really have a burning desire, and Napoleon Hill talks about it as being a burning desire, that's something that you really are enthusiastic about it. You believe in your abilities. You believe that it's going to happen and that it has already happened. It just kind of hasn't caught up with you yet. But the bottom line is that you own it, you take ownership with it, and it becomes yours, whatever degree of success that you can. Just to finish off, and the one point that you made, yes, I have made millions of dollars, okay? And I have lost millions of dollars. And the one story that I did tell was, and to sum up that story, I had the idea, I accomplished it, was worth $2.5 million, but I never thought beyond what the drop-off date was, because I had promised myself that I was going to have at least $1 million by the time that I was 45 years old. Well, by the time I was 45 years old, lo and behold, I had $2.5 million. But by the time I was 46, I didn't have anything. I lost it all. And there were a whole set of circumstances. But the interesting part, and I finally figured it out after a couple of years, the reason that I didn't have, that I lost it, was not because of the economic circumstances that made it happen. It was because I never thought by the time that I was 46, 47, whatever it was, that I was going to have whatever, $5 million and so forth. So this goes back to the whole thing about, if you plant a seed, the seed has all of the directions in it, but the seed, and it also has all of the instructions in it to become a significant plant. But if the plant gets to the point where it gives up, where it never has anything about any ability to go ahead and spawn another plant, in other words, accomplish more success, then the end result is that it's going to go into a death spiral, and it's probably going to end quite badly. So with that being said, I'm just going to kind of wind it up here a little bit, but let me see, I have maybe one more little trick or one more little thing I was going to say. I have another little book here, and I don't know that you can see it because I have a black screen here, but one of the things that I like to talk about when I'm doing a full-blown workshop is the fear of what others may think, okay? And it goes on, this is a little book that I have, but I'll just make it river. It says, are you afraid of what others might think? Do you let this fear keep you from doing and saying the things that you should be done and should be said? Many men and women of good moral character are permitting fear of ridicule, criticism, or censure to destroy their much greater usefulness to the community in which they live. In other words, helping other people. They are afraid to take a stand on any controversial issue or explain a principle that may come up for fear of offending friends who may oppose it. Says, and the bottom line is that I think that this is what ends up happening not only in politics, but in all kinds of different things. We've got to get used to the idea that you need to express your enthusiasm and your belief in things, and don't let people, don't let it get to you. Napoleon Hill, in Law of Success and in Think and Go Rich, he's got these 7 basic fears that he talks about. And, it's the fear of dying. It's the fear of this, it's the fear of that. But the interesting part of it is the number 2 fear that is on that list is the fear of failing. And this is the interesting part of it, is because Napoleon Hill was really talking not so much about the fear of failing. That's not what keeps us back. What really keeps us back is our fear of criticism that goes along with the fear of failing, because your mother, your father, your friends are going to look at you, and you're going to be subject to criticism. And one of the things that we as human beings don't really like to do, whether you're an adult or whether you're a child, is to be criticized for things. Even constructive criticism hurts a little bit, okay? But the main thing is to understand that you can't look at fear and the fear of criticism as being a negative. It's a negative motivating factor, but you got to throw it away. What I always tell people is, you can't let a disappointment, you can't let fear of criticism, you can't let any of these things own a piece of you. If it owns a piece of you, that means that you become a slave to it. And nobody wants to be a slave to anything. And you don't have to have it permitted to be able, or you don't have to permit that to be the case. It's that simple. So, Nathan, if anybody's got any questions or anything, that's fine, but I don't want to take any more of your time. But bottom line is that you are what you think about, and it works every single time as long as you believe in yourself and you never give up.
Mm. Yeah, I have
any comments or criticisms?
Yeah, I have a question in terms of so obviously the fear of failure, like what you're saying, is more of a fear of being criticized or being judged by other people, right?
Yeah.
And I got what you said, that you have to make sure that you're giving enthusiasm to the things that you want, and make sure that you're not giving energy to the things that you don't want, because whether you want it or you don't want it, it's a seed that gets planted and it's going to grow, right?
Absolutely. It doesn't really make any difference. The seed is going to grow either from a positive, or it's either going to be a great plant or it's going to be a lousy plant and die.
Right.
Okay. It's that simple. Yeah. I
So
try to use, I use some of these, nature type things, plants and things, because it's all the same thing. We're part of it also,
Yeah.
And we've all been given the same innate abilities. We're not any different. If you've ever, in fact, I was out working in the yard today, and I have a number of large pieces of rocks and boulders out there. And there was one, and I was doing some clearing of some brushes, some trees and things that were all around, a lot of weeds and things. And I noticed that there was this tree that was growing out of this huge boulder. And I had my little saw there, and I couldn't cut that tree down, because I looked at that tree and I said, I can't imagine what that tree had to go through in order to come up through that tiny little crack.
Yeah.
That boulder.
Persistence.
So it didn't get cut down. I saved the tree's life, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's kind of what, and a lot of times, I guess the analogy to be made here is that we struggle, we get disappointed, people criticize us, we have all this kind of stuff. But if you're focused on what it is that you want to have happen and why you want to have it happen, in other words, what you want to accomplish and why do you want to accomplish it, that's really the key thing. You've got to be always aware of the destination. And it's a series of destinations. In network marketing, there are different achievement levels that you go ahead and you want to achieve. And there, you know, and if you achieve them, you get the recognition. You probably get the additional money if money is what it is. But a lot of times, and this is what I found to be the case, and I really preached it when I was actively in the network marketing business. And this is a little phrase that you might, maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, and so forth. But I had I believe it, you know, everybody's heard of Amway and so forth. And I wasn't in Amway, but the fellow who taught me the network marketing business was a double or triple diamond or whatever it was in Amway at one time. And he said, there's two things that make Amway work other than soap and all of the other products. And I just use this as an example. He said, first of all, it's the camaraderie and it's the interaction of the people. He was even talking about the backyard parties and things like that, whatever, you know, the picnics and so forth. He said, that's the glue that keeps it together, because everybody needs to feel like they're part of something rather than apart from something. And that's what I make the point out of. You're part of universal intelligence. You're part of God's spirit. You're part of whatever. Okay. So that's a basic need that we all have. And the other thing is that was extremely important, and I preach this now, and I preach it particularly to anybody that I'm dealing with in the networking industry, and that was that recognition is extremely important. In fact, he taught me that recognition was probably for a lot of people than the actual money that they received. And it's because people have a tendency to be deficient in their ability or in people saying good things about what they've accomplished. And the phrase that goes along with it is, and this is in relation to recognition, is he says, babies cry for it, grown men die for it. Babies cry for attention, obviously, to get the bottle, and grown men will go to war in order to fight for a cause and then get recognition in some way, shape, or form from it. It's kind of it's got a positive side to it and a negative side from it, but I've never forgotten that phrase. Babies cry for it, grown men die for it. And women, by the way. Just, I'm not being descriptive here. So anyhow, for what that's worth, okay? So any other questions at all? From anybody or yourself?
Well, I have a question about when you're working with people and they get sort of stuck, or because if whether it's positive or negative, it's going to get created, right? What are some of the recommendations that you recommend for people to help them keep what's going into their subconscious mind positive and focused on what they want? Because I feel like the mind is so easily distracted by what it doesn't want. And in the world that we're living in right now with social media, there's so much like influence and there's so much stuff coming at us all the time. I feel like you have to be really skilled at filtering out the noise.
Well, you do, and it's a good question, and there's a fairly simple answer. Wait 1 second, I'll be right back. I have to close the door here.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, one of the things that I do right off the bat when I start to work with a group of people, or whether I'm, it's an individual, is I have them go back and I have them make a list. Just take a piece of paper and they make a list of all of the things that they can remember. And you've got a memory, so it's all in there, okay? Your subconscious mind can bring it back up. So start thinking about all of the things that you really felt good about in growing up that were successes. And I don't care if they go back to when they first could remember things, okay? Whether they got recognition, whether they won a baseball game, or it doesn't really make any difference. And this should be a long list. If they got accepted into a club, or they were, it really doesn't make any difference. The reason that you're making this list up, and this is the important part, is that I need to have the person do a memory jogger of all of the things that they felt very good about themselves of having accomplished. Now, when you do that, it's kind of like a little memory jolt to the subconscious mind. And it's impossible, Nathan, to do that exercise without, if you do it right, and right is just a matter of remembering it, okay? And when you remember it, you're probably going to relive it, all right? For a moment, for a split second. And if you really focus on it, it could have been, you won a ribbon or something or other, and you really felt good at a science fair when you're in fourth grade, okay? It can go back that far. But when you do that, you re-stimulate the emotion that was attached to that, because we're emotional creatures. And that emotion is kind of a reminder to the subconscious, hey, you know what? I really feel good about myself, and I have lots of reasons to feel good about myself. So now that they've got this long list of accomplishments, they can be relationships, they can be this, it doesn't really make any difference. What we've done is that we've brought it back into the conscious mind, and we're able to, for anything else, vibrate. I just lost the screen here. Somebody went off. But anyhow, we're able to vibrate. So what we're really trying to do is to make us feel good. So what I'm telling you about, or suggesting here, is that when things start to go wrong, you've got to drag out the list, or at least go over the list in your mind, and remember how successful you have been. Rekindle that emotional connection, and that will dissipate the frustration and the disappointment that's currently going on. Works every time.
Wow, that's amazing.
Simple thing.
When you were explaining that, just right away, I remembered 2 times when I was playing soccer. One time I scored like the final goal, and one time I was playing baseball, and it was like a really important game, and I hit the ball at the end of the game, and the winning run came in, and all my teammates were around me, like we were all celebrating together. I haven't thought about that in 20 plus years, but
yeah, and
you mentioned that, boom, it like came right back. That's amazing.
And you were able to relive that experience.
Yeah.
If you think about it for a little while, you're going to remember you're going to remember the faces of all of the people that were on the team and so forth. That's what you end up doing. And that, by the way, goes along with the whole concept. I think I mentioned it the last week or last time I was on. You go back to some of these old philosophers, the Socrates and Aristotle, and in this particular case, you go back, and Descartes was the guy that came up with everything has an opposite. Okay, if you have an inside, you have to have an outside. If you have an up, you have to have a down. If you have a happy, you have to have a sad. Would you agree with that type of thing?
Yes.
So everything has an opposite, and if you really look closely at it, so what you're really saying is that if you have a memory, since we have a memory, okay, and everything that we've ever experienced, every conversation, every incident, just like the baseball and the soccer that you just described, if you have the right type of mindset, you can go back and replay that movie as if it happened 2 seconds ago, okay? So the point being is that if you have a memory and you can go back and you can relive those experiences as if they just happened, what would be the opposite of your memory? It would be your imagination. So I talk about the screen of the mind. You just reran the movies of the soccer game and the baseball game on the screen of your mind, correct?
Yeah. And
we're able to relive that experience. You emotionally became reattached to that. Okay, and you won't forget that, by tomorrow morning. It's still there. And you can bring it up over and over again. All right? So if we have a memory and we going along with the whole concept that we've got the opposite of it, which would be an imagination, what we're really saying is that we have a screen of your mind. So if you picture let's go back to my particular case. If I, for a split second, which I evidently did, imagined myself walking across a stage or being the keynote speaker in front of 3,000 people in the middle of Singapore. I didn't think about Singapore. I never thought I would be on the other side of the planet doing this. But the point is that I, for a split second, saw myself doing that. Now, this isn't an egotistical thing. This is just the way it happened. So on the screen of my mind, I was amidst the audience. I saw somebody else doing it. I substituted myself for doing it. And 25 years old, or whatever it was, 20 years later, I end up doing it. That's why it's so important that somebody understand we've got opposites, but if you've got a screen in your mind for your memory and you've got the same exact screen in your mind for your imagination, that when it pops up on your imagination, you better be careful what you think about and what you visualize, because guess what? You just bought it. You owned it. So make sure it's something that you really want to have happen. And you don't have to necessarily kill yourself to make it happen. I didn't think about walking across the stage for 20 years. But the universe provided a series of coincidences, which aren't coincidences, because there's no such thing as a coincidence. I always ask people, what's the root word of coincidence? Coincide. So what ended up happening is that the universe provided a lot of different things that coincided with a thought that I had 20 years before and enabled it to come to fruition. And again, not to be egotistical, but I kind of like stuff. I have created Rolls Royces, Jaguars, airplanes, boats, mansions, buildings, all kinds of different things over my life. And it took me a little while to figure out, hey, you know what? Seems like most anything that I think about somehow or other shows up. And it always did. Now that was always based on things that I really did have a burning desire to have. Okay? Just like a burning desire to have that $1 million by the time I was 45. All I did was to plant the seed. I didn't get up every morning for 20 years and say, oh boy, I'm on my way to my $1 million. I didn't really think about it. I just got to work. And the law of increasing returns even paid off because I had 2.5 times $1 million. It's not rocket science. I said that to you before, and it's not. And I don't want to oversimplify it, but I almost have to. And the way that you can prove this to yourself, anybody that's on the call, is go back and remember not only the things that they were successful at, but remember and bring up on the screen of their minds the things that they really wanted to have, whatever it was. If it's a materialistic thing, what kind of car did they want? Well, how did that happen? How much money did they want to have in their bank account on a certain day? What type of a vacation do they have? Bottom line is that these things were all nothing more than an expression of a thought energy that collapsed, meaning that's a good collapse. In other words, they condensed into the form. And that's why the whole business about thought energy or thoughts and thought energy, which is nothing more than what a thought really is always trying to take on some kind of form. That's like that whole Coke bottle thing that I was talking about the previous time. I said we pretended that water was, going to take on some kind of a form that looked like a Coke bottle, and sure enough, it did. That's how things work. And I've spent 74 years proving this to myself, although I accepted it about 50 or 60 years ago. And that was based, by the way, and I think I mentioned this for the first time around, I had a grandmother who was a lot wiser and probably had more to do with establishing what my morals were and everything else about me, but she drummed it into my head. You can be, do, and have anything that you want to have, as long as you don't violate somebody else, and as long as you get a clear picture of what it is that you want, and you're willing to do something in order to make it happen. So this is a long answer, by the way, to a short question. And that was, how do you keep yourself from getting derailed?
Yeah. And
how do you get yourself, the conscious mind can't handle two thoughts at one time. It's impossible. So if you've got a thought that you're depressed or you're defeated or you're being criticized or whatever it is, you got to have an inventory of things that you can go to immediately. Not something you're going to sit around and think. It's like having a little little cheat sheet and so forth in front of you that you can open up and say, I got to go to that baseball game because that's going to make me feel good. That happened 30 years ago. I got to go to that place on the beach where I really enjoyed myself, because that's a good place. And you can dissipate that thought energy with another good thought energy. But the easiest way to do it is, rather than sit there and try to think of something or other, you already have an inventory of things that you can immediately go to. Mm. And what you do there is that you change the energy that you're emitting, and you're changing the energy that he'll call it your broadcasting. When you change that, your broadcasting station, since it's going out and bringing exactly what it's being broadcast out. If it's positive, it's great, because you're attracting to you the conditions that you want to have happen. But if it's negative and you're broadcasting it out, guess what? It works both ways. You're going to end up creating more disasters. Now, eventually, that's going to break out of the cycle, because you're not going to say, but you'll probably find yourself right back in it if a person happens to be predominantly negative. That's why I always tell people it's more important for somebody to learn and work on themselves, this mind stuff, than it is for them to work on their job or whatever. I'm not saying don't work on your job, but it's more important for them to understand themselves, because when they understand themselves, they can be so much productive for themselves and for other people. And of course, the way that you achieve things, it's a matter of, you can have anything in the world that you want as long as you help enough other people get what they want and you don't violate the rights of those people. Simple stuff.
Hi, James. It's William here. I'd like to share something, because maybe 10 years ago, me and Regina, when we met, or maybe 11 years ago, I said to Regina that we were going to travel around the world, and she was going to go back to Indonesia, and it changed thousands of people's lives. And back then, she didn't even have, her confidence was low, but I knew who she was. And it's funny, because she ended up doing thousands of speaking engagements in Indonesia, but she also get invited to Philippines, and she spoke in front of 10,000 people in Philippines. But before, we weren't even in USANA, we weren't in networking at the time. And I says to her, we're going to travel around the world, changing lives and making a difference. And she's looked at me as if I was crazy. But she's doing it every day now. It's now part of her life.
Out of curiosity, when you made that statement, were you involved did you have any idea how you were going to do it?
Well, I was in networking before, and I also personal development coach, and I have the passion to help people. And one of the things I've done is, when I met Regina, I looked at her personality profile, I looked at her numerology, I looked at all that kind of stuff, and I could see she's got that inside her, but she couldn't see it, because obviously it's what you're saying, is when you know who people are and what they've got. And I could see that me and her were very aligned. I'd done a values exercise with her, and what I seen is 10 of my values. It was cards, right? There's about 60 values on these. It's like a pack of cards, and she picked 7 out of 10, the same as mine. And I could see that we had the same value system, and which my passion was helping people, unleashing people, and that's why obviously we're here today, because that was my passion. So. But she's now doing exactly what I'm doing, and now both of us are doing the same thing. But she couldn't see it back then, because how she occurred for herself she didn't have the vision. I had the vision, and then she followed my vision, but she's actually still got here through my vision, through association. And now her vision's getting stronger and stronger, because I'm the one that had the vision, and I actually manifested it for her, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, not only did you manifest it for her, but you also manifested her into your life. Think about it.
For sure. Yeah.
Because at some point in time in your life, you didn't know each other. So the law of attraction really does work. Why did you attract somebody that was so compatible to you as opposed to somebody that wasn't? It's because what we were talking about, literally you were vibrating at the right frequency, for lack of anything else, so that the law of attraction kicked over, and you brought two compatible energy sources together that complemented each other. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. And the difference well, obviously this is my second marriage, right? But the difference in what we've created in the short space of time and the results and the lifestyle, like, we went from New Zealand to moving and manifesting into Indonesia and being here for 5 years and created a massive organization, which is also expanding into different countries around the world from that manifestation back then. And that we weren't even in the business then. Everything's just became amazing. We've got so many amazing friends that we would never have had, and all these beautiful people, and the lifestyle, and free trips to Busana, and our life is just transformed. Where before I was 34 kgs heavier, I looked like crap, stressed, and now our life is transformed in every area.
One of the things, just as a side note, as I mentioned, I was pretty successful in networking and network marketing, and probably and I made a lot of money. Okay, whatever, but probably the most valuable thing that came out of the network marketing was I could go literally anywhere in the world because my organization was national or international. And if I needed something, I built these relationships. So in other words, the point being is that, the relationships was the real value out of the network marketing experience that I had. Would you agree? The money is kind of a secondary. It's nice, but it's kind of the deal.
The money's never the option. If I always tell people, if you chase the money will run away. You need to be impacting and influencing, making a difference in other people's lives, and the abundance will just flow because we're unleashing people. We're not. The money's like the last thing you get. And Napoleon Hill says that all the things that you get, money's on the last on the list. The love, the compassion, the relationships, all that's way ahead of the money. And when people really get that, they just start being a giver. I think some people join network marketing, they might be stingy, but as they learn to give, the business explodes because it's the focusing your attention on another human being and helping them creates abundance, because then you don't have a scarcity, keeping score. If I help this person, I don't get anything back. No, just help anybody who wants help. Don't need to be the person you need to benefit from. Just be a giver, and that will create that abundance. So, yeah, 100% on the same track.
Funny, two points that I'll make, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. But one is that one of the things that I learned in network marketing was in the very beginning was, you had we used to have a unilevel system, which meant that you could go wide as opposed to a binary, which is what USANA, I understand, is. But the bottom line is, I used to work with people 20, 30, 40 levels below me, or 50 levels. It didn't make any difference, because obviously some people would quit, but I knew that somewhere down there was an acre of diamonds, okay? And that somebody was really needed the help and was willing to come to the front and do what was necessary in order to make it happen. So I just worked with everybody, to be perfectly honest with you. The other thing that I want to point out is when I'm doing a lecture or a workshop, I always say, does anybody in the audience have a dog? And, half the people raise their hand, and I said, is your dog your best friend? Yeah, my dog's my best friend. I said, well, if you take that dog out into the backyard and you chase and run after that dog, which direction is that dog going to go? Is he going to run away from you? Or is he going to come to you? And I said, and of course the answer is he's going to run away from you. So what you chase, because that you're chasing the dog. The dog is going to go in the opposite direction. And he's your best friend. What's this all about? Okay? So it kind of makes the point, since they all love their dogs, to say, well, wait a second. I don't need to chase anything. I just need to have the right mindset that I have the ability to be literally a magnet and I have the ability to choose what I want to attract to myself. And I want to attract nice people. Okay, I want to attract whatever else you want to attract, friendships. If it's money, fine, whatever. It doesn't really make any difference. So I've always tried to live my life on the law of attraction side because it does work.
It works in the opposite as well, because it's like you when you vibrate at a certain level, you attract, and you start attracting all these amazing people into your life. And if your energy is no locked in, you're like mosquito repellent, where you start, people just get out of your road. So you're either magnet or mosquito repellent based on your vibration.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me, I think I probably said it the last time, it's the old thing, I don't, because we have people on all over the world, but one of the things we used to, when we were in 7th grade or something or other, the demonstration about about magnetics. You used to take all these iron filings and you put them on a piece of paper. Then you take a magnet that looked like a pen, and you could write your name or whatever else. You put the magnet underneath the paper, and all these iron filings would go to spell out James Spooner, or you could draw a dog or whatever it is. That's where you kind of learned the concept of, hey, that magnet has the ability to dissipate and make all those iron filings scatter all over the place. Or if you turn it so that you got opposite poles, you're going to end up attracting, or like poles, and you're going to end up tracking. So, it's fun stuff, And as I say, the biggest thing is people have to believe in themselves, and they have to have a burning desire to be able to accomplish, or they have to have a burning desire to accomplish something. And it's not just something, it's many things. It never ends. So.
And that's why burning your bridge is important. Like, a lot of people say, well, I want to be free, but they don't go all in. And like we just sold everything up from New Zealand and came to Indonesia. We burned the bridge. I had a flooring company that was making, I don't know, maybe $8,000 a week in my flooring business. But I knew I couldn't get out of it unless I burnt the bridge. So I took a pay cut so I could get free. So I downsized, took a pay cut, went into a smaller income so I could put more time into becoming free. So I went all in, and that's what Napoleon Hill says. Says they burnt the bridge, they burnt the boat so they couldn't retreat. And a lot of people, they need to get that if you just go all in, you success is guaranteed. You need to go for it. No, if you put one toe in, you can't swim across the pool with a toe. You need to go all in the pool, right? So
absolutely, that's why it's so important to, with the Napoleon Hill or any of this stuff, for them to really get an understanding of this conceiving thing. Okay, once that idea gets conceived and projected onto the screen of your mind, you own it. Okay, unless you give up. The only way you could possibly fail would be give up on that dream. Okay, and you can control the time. In other words, the more enthusiastic, the more effort, all of the different things that go along with work ethic, they get into it. But a lot of times, you don't even have to kill yourself. You have to work hard, but you really have to have work with the right attitude. And then you can probably work a little bit less hard if you have the right attitude and know that you're in the business of being a magnet that are going to attract the right people to you. You don't want to attract the wrong people. They're negative energy. They vibrate at the wrong frequency, and they slow things down.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Anyhow, so great to talk to somebody who's, been as successful as you. My hat's off to you. Okay. So, and all of the other
my
people,
hat's off. Yeah.
Everybody's a success. It's just to what degree, whether, financial success, but they just need to really go back and revisit. Like I said, make that list of the very small little things, relive those experiences, vibrate at that frequency, get yourself emotionally attached to it, and stay that way. That helps to dissipate any of the frustrations that happen. Because frustrations will continue to happen, but they get less and less, and eventually they have no effect on you at all.
Yeah. You have a bulletproof skin. Networking gives you rhino skin. Remember the book Rhinoceros Success?
Yeah.
That's a very good book about just things just bounce off you after a while. When you first start, everybody's insecure, worrying what people think, and then you're so sensitive, and then after a while, it's like, oh, that's okay. It just bounces off.
That goes back to the fear of criticism. Nobody likes to be criticized, you know, and the fear of failing is really driven by the fear of criticism. So anyhow, well, we probably ought to, again, we started out with a half an hour or 20 minutes and we did an hour. So, but my hat's off to everybody. Thanks again for the invitation. I hope you picked up a couple of little tidbits. Did I talk to you guys the last time about one last thing? I always do this one last thing. I talked to you guys about writing things down with a pencil, by the way, didn't I?
I don't think so.
Nathan, did I?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. I'm going to close with this. Okay. Are you ready?
Okay.
When I tell people to write things down, I tell them I don't want them to type it on a computer right off the bat. I want them to write it down with a pencil, a number 2 pencil. And I'll ask you, Nathan, what's a number 2 pencil made out of?
Lead.
Okay.
Lead.
Okay. A lot of people, they all say lead. Okay. That's exactly right. And wood, you know, it's got a wood and it's got an eraser. And I always ask them, so why do you want to write it down with a number 2 pencil? And, you know, I'll get, because I can erase it if I change my mind and all these kind of things. Bottom line is, it isn't that way. I'm going to show you something. Excuse me for getting up. Now, it doesn't have to be this large, but if you can see this, this is a number 2 pencil. Okay? So, available on Amazon, okay? But if a thought is nothing but energy, okay, and when you said lead, it's not lead, it's graphite. And unbeknownst to about 99.9% of the people, unless they're electrically inclined, graphite is the second best conductor of electrical energy known to mankind. Wires used to have graphite in it, okay? So if I take this big pencil, and I can take a little pencil, and I write things down, all I'm doing is transmitting my thoughts with me down through the pencil. In other words, down through my arm, down through the pencil. I'm writing a word down. I'm drawing a line. Let's say I write a T. I make the form of a T. If I put an R, I'm going to have an R. If I have an E, I have an E. All I've done is drawn little things. But as soon as I've written it down, it becomes a word, right? Tree, just as an example. I just wrote the word tree. Now, that tree is an image. My tree is different than your tree, but it's a tree that I have in my mind. So what I'm telling you is that by writing things down, I've created a loop. Now, this sounds crazy, but I have created a loop because now I've got a positive feedback. So all I want people to do is to remember that when they write things down with a pencil, it's not about erasing it. It's about amplifying the energy that they're putting on that piece of paper, and it becomes golden at that point because what they've written down has really become real, and it bounced back into their subconscious mind, and it's going to expand and create the conditions that are necessary in order to make it happen. Good example, when you took that, Nathan, when you took that baseball, if you wrote down, I was a successful baseball or soccer or whatever it is, how you felt different than you felt differently when you wrote it. Did you write it down? A question, did you write it down?
I did, yeah.
You said you relived the experience, right?
Yes.
Out of all the things that you've done today, because you did a bunch of stuff today, whatever it was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how did that make you feel in relation to anything else you did today?
Oh yeah. As soon as I remembered it, all of this sort of emotion came up through my body. I couldn't even tell you what I did earlier today.
Right. So, but now you can tell me that you thought of a baseball game and a soccer game and hitting the home run. Well, what I'm telling you is that when you write something down, you now have created the loop, Sounds crazy, but you also obviously have a record of it because it's on a piece of paper, and all you've got to do is to pick it up. If you really want to amplify it, pick it up and look at it and hold the pencil at the same time. It's like a magic wand. Okay, crazy stuff. Okay, here's the pencil. Don't forget the pencil, guys.
Yeah, we gotta.
Anyhow, it's been fun again. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Hopefully people got a few things from it.
Yeah, it was amazing as always, just like last time.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, well, thanks
So-
for being here. I will unmute everyone, and they can. How do I unmute people? And everybody can mute all.
Thank
You're muted, William.
Oh, I'm muted. Thank you so much, James. That was amazing, and you're an inspiration. And we really appreciate you sharing your time. I know it's very valuable, and coming on here and sharing your wisdom with us. So it makes a big difference to a lot of people, and I'm sure everybody got a lot of nuggets from that. So thank you.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
you're muted.
Yeah, I muted everyone by. I was trying to unmute.
James is muted. No, it was very good. I mean, I have to admit, I wasn't sure what I was expecting, from the invitation from William, but it's gold. It's about our mindset. It's about, reliving moments to spur you forward with that moment and go crazy, go and be bold. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys all, everybody else for coming. Thank you. I know it's really early in Indonesia. It's probably afternoon in Australia, late here in the US. So we're all over the world and we all came together. And thank you, James, for your time again. And you're always welcome back anytime, brother. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Inta, again.
Thank you.
For putting this together.
Thank you. That was a fantastic session. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, guys, have a great day. And